Hi, everyone. Today, we're going to briefly go over the informative speech assignment instructions. So this document is just kind of a compiled list of everything you need to know for the informative speech assignment that's coming up. So you can see at the top here that there is a checklist of things. You're going to have to produce 3 scholarly sources, and you're going to cite those within your speech. So you need 3 scholarly sources. Then you're going to have an APA formatted reference page, a full sentence outline rough draft, as well as a full sentence outline final draft. You'll need a PowerPoint that is kind of a minimum of 6 slides. You can have more than that, which is absolutely fine, but a minimum of 6. And you are also going to have to present both the outline and PowerPoint in a 4 to 6 minute presentation. So at the time that this video is created, you can do this either in person or as a video if you're a in-person student. Online students obviously would just submit a video. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to go over is sources. So like I said earlier, you're going to have to find 3 scholarly sources, and you're going to have to cite these sources in each of your main points. So each source should kind of go with one main point, but you can kind of quote them throughout and however you want to throughout the speech, but you do have to cite each of the 3 in each main point. So those are the 3 that will be listed on your reference page, and you can obviously have more, and you can cite more than that if you would like to, but the minimum you have to have is 3. So you will have to have what's called in-text citations, and just like when you're writing an essay, you write down according to so-and-so, or you just basically tell the reader who said the information that you are citing. You have to do the same thing within a speech, but we don't just write it in the outline, we actually say it out loud. So we call these in-text citations both written and oral citations. So here are a couple of examples here of written and in-text, and I'm going to actually add in there, I'll update this so you have that, but this should say in-text written / oral citation examples. Okay, so here's an example. Say you were doing a speech on in-text citations, and you decide to quote Helen Peters because she has a book on in-text citations and how to do them correctly. So in your first main point, you might cite Helen Peters like this. According to Helen Peters, a communication instructor at UAPTC, in-text citations must always be used when citing information from the source. Okay, so that would be the oral citation. The oral part of this is the fact that I say who said it, who they are, and what they said. Right, that's the oral citation. What makes this also a written citation is adding in the 2021. So that is like the year of publication in parentheses. I don't actually say that out loud, but I include it so that for me as the reader, I could read this and say, okay, Helen Peters 2021, and then go look at your reference page and see, okay, that refers to this particular source, right? So that is why we do that. If there are page numbers, you would also include the page numbers at the end of that sentence. Okay, so another example is according to the Center of Disease Control website, insert a paraphrase or direct quote from articles. So say you were doing a speech on diabetes, right? So maybe you quoted the Center of Disease Control. But you're quoting, since they don't necessarily have authors, they more so just publish things to their website as an organization. You wouldn't quote any one person, but you would quote the entity or the organization, which would be the Center of Disease Control. So you could say according to the Center of Disease Control, and you could just leave it at that, or you could add website and then include the information. But again, you need to always have the year of publication and, if possible, the author. So another way to do this is next, in an article written in the academic journal, APA Citations Today, Peters et al. Suggest, and then you put where your quote is. So on here, Peters et al. Means that basically Peters was the author along with a lot of other people. So probably like 4 more authors were listed. So instead of writing everyone's name out, I just wrote Peters et al. And that's just saying Peters and a lot of people. But again, the year of publication is there. I tell you that it's an academic journal, and I tell you the name of the journal, just to kind of give you some background on why I'm citing this person. And then finally, the last one is research by UAMS doctors Peters and Sherrill, year of publication, supports, and then another quote. So again, I tell you who these people are. So you notice in all of these, I just very briefly give a little bit of credibility to either the person or the organization that I'm quoting. And so I want you to do that as well. You know, don't just cite someone, also talk about who they are, because at the end of the day, we might not know who you're citing, right? So to show your audience, hey, this is a credible person, we include one little bit of information about them just to prove that it's credible. Okay, so that is how we cite within each of our main points, as each of our main points has to have an in-text written and oral citation. We might also find that as you're writing your speech, well, source that I picked for my main point 1, well, that actually has a lot of really great points for all of my main points. That's fine. You can use it throughout each of your main points, but you still have to use your other sources. So to kind of clarify what I mean by that, you can see here that, okay, so main point 1, I use source 1, right? I quote from source 1. So that means I have one written and oral citation. Well, then in main point 2, I want to use source 1 and my second source. And so in that particular main point, I would have 2 written and oral citations. And then in main point 3, I decide, okay, I still want to use source 1, and then I also need to use source 3 to utilize all of my main points, or utilize all my sources, sorry, and then again, so that would be 2 in-text written and oral citations. So that's just kind of what I mean by that is each main point needs to have its own source, but you can utilize one source throughout as well if you want to. That just means that some of your main points will have more than one written and oral citation. Then as you're constructing your main points, you may find that, okay, well, where am I supposed to put all of these citations, or how should I do this? An easy way to do this is just as I show you right here, right? Is first to say, okay, write your main point, and in the main point section, just write your overall point, what you're trying to make in that main point. In subpoint 1, maybe include your in-text citation, and basically just back up what you just said in the main point 1 section with your source, with your quote, right? And then in subpoint 2, that's where we just briefly summarize everything. We kind of might connect that citation in subpoint 1 to the main point, or maybe we give a little bit of a personal experience example or something along those lines. But in that section, it's kind of like your own thoughts, and you're just wrapping up the main point. So that's a good way to do it. And whenever you watch the video on writing your informative speech, you'll see how I actually do an example of this later. Okay, so the next thing that we have to have is the APA reference page. So you may be more familiar with the term, what is it called? Works cited page. MLA has a works cited page. It's the same exact concept, it's just a different format. MLA is a different way of writing, and in college and later in college, you will probably be asked to write an APA format. So an APA format, we call it a reference page. And this is just where we put all of our sources in a particular format. So whenever you're writing your reference page, you're going to want to make sure to follow the guide on that. I'm also making a video for how to write your reference page, so be sure to watch that. But basically what you need to know is that it needs to have the 12 point Times New Roman font. It needs to be double spaced, have the hanging indentation, all that fun stuff. And you have to have at least 3 for this assignment. You can have more than 3 sources, but you have to have at least 3. So again, if you want to learn more about the reference page, how to do that correctly, watch my video on that. All right, and so then we have the full sentence, outline, rough draft, and final draft. So you will turn into me a rough draft of your outline. And again, we never turn in an essay. So don't ever turn this in as an essay. It needs to stay in the outline form. So you'll use the template that I provide for you, and you'll just fill it in with all of your information. And you'll turn in a rough draft, which I will then give back to you. And you will have time to edit that and then turn in a final draft. Again, this has to include a introduction, body, and conclusion. Has to have at least 3 main points with a in-text citation in each of those main points. You can have in-text citations in the introduction and the conclusion, but that is not required. But that's okay if you use them. And so again, if you want to see more about that, watch the video on how to write your informative speech. Then you'll also have a PowerPoint, and this PowerPoint is not supposed to be anything really complex. This is actually supposed to be really simple. So don't think of it as you're trying to just present this big PowerPoint and that's your speech. What it is that your PowerPoint should really just highlight your what you're saying. So I mean, if your PowerPoint's mainly all pictures, that's okay. It just needs to kind of look uniform. So I'll also make a video on how to create a good PowerPoint for this assignment, so you can watch that. But just be aware that you will have to have a PowerPoint and you will need to use it while you present. So, or while you're doing your speech. So if you decide to make a video, you can just have your slides on a computer and click through. Some people connect it to a TV. That's not required, but you can if you want to. But you do need to utilize your PowerPoint throughout the whole speech. And then finally, the 4 to 6 minute presentation. This is when we put everything together. You'll present using your outline and your PowerPoint, and then you'll either record or in person present your speech. So good luck with all of this. I know you're going to do great, and I'm excited to see it.